Sure, I'm Gary Smith, president of TravelPerks, and a pleasure of managing this awesome team for 21 years. The biggest thing we noticed, I mean, obviously, having just finished that trip, having seen big ships or what is actually will build themselves as a small ship, under 1,000 people, is still very, very different than a ship that's only 250 people. We literally went to places that the big ships, and again, by big ship, even things as small as only 900 people, not be able to go to. We went to Beaver Island. We went to other places that the bigger ships just can't dock into. And so when you're on literally an exploration ship, the one that carries their own Zodiacs, that has the ability to get you to places that you can't get elsewhere, to really see the natives. We went to, I mean, literally an island that has 3 people living on it year round. But the reason we went, of course, was not to meet the 3 people, not that they were not interesting, but it was to actually see the millions of birds that are living there and nesting, and to be able to walk the trails and right beside where they're hatching their chicks was just absolutely incredible. So first of all, having an expedition team, having into what they call a discovery team on board. So you're talking about naturalists, people who understand everything there is to understand about nature and about the places you're going, have studied those areas, to be able to point out the birds. Again, to have the Zodiacs, to have the ability to take a Zodiac directly off the ship with only 10 people on board, and to pull up right alongside a cliff to go somewhere where everyone else has no opportunity. You can see that if you look at the Track My Tour and you look at some of the photos that I'm sure we'll post along with this. You'll see photos from the early part of the trip where we went to kind of the bigger cities that everyone else had gone to, and we have to walk up a cliffside, and you're trying to take a picture with a zoom in, etc., while just seeing the top of what's happening. And then you can see photos later on where we're literally from the Zodiac in the water, where we're 20 feet off the side of the cliff, seeing the entire thing and seeing the striation of the different hierarchy of the birds and which ones nest at the bottom, which one nest in the cliff, and then what is really what everyone wants to see more than anything is, of course, the puffins, which only exist at the very top of the cliff, burrowing in, sharing details that we would not have gotten elsewhere as far as just seeing them, learning the ecology of the puffin, which we did, which is that they actually have 2 burrows, and they actually lay their eggs in one burrow, and then actually use another burrow just for the bathroom, etc. Right? So actually, how they keep their nest clean, which is unlike many other birds. So just those things that naturalists bring to the discovery, the ability to understand what we're seeing from a whale perspective, from a nature's perspective, understanding how the timing of things happen. They were just so informative. And again, the beautiful thing is you don't have to sit there and try to read it in a book yourself or Google it or anything else and try to think you might understand. You have somebody there while you're enjoying everything, taking your photos. Somebody is telling you what you're seeing and helping you understand it in the background, which is the best of any escorted tour, and why you should do that. So onshore, I think it was, originally you're like, oh, it's Iceland. There's 10 days of going around the island, seeing cliffs and birds, and more cliffs and birds, and more cliffs and birds. And you get there and you realize that's really not at all that. It actually is amazingly diverse. That was wonderfully interesting. So the offshore was literally the diversity and the fact that we could get to so many different places to understand how things were formed from a geological standpoint. I mean, it's obviously a country that is still full of volcanic activity, still changing every year, actually growing by 2 centimeters a year. As the tectonic plates move across, things I learned while on board from the naturalists. And so to see that diversity and to be able to understand the ecology, to actually get into a cave. The Discovery team actually took us down to a place where we climbed, over 175 feet down into a cave, provided the helmets. All that, again, was included as part of Let's Scenic, no extra cost, all those options, etc. So that was part of, I guess, the difference of seeing it off the ship. On the ship, I've done over 100 cruises. I've done just about every cruise line possible. This was on my bucket list to do a scenic cruise to experience that level of luxury inclusion. And all I can say is, Yeah, wow. And so I can't begin to think about, and I can't even wait to think about my next trip, which I actually already put a deposit down on board, which again, as a travel agent, I generally wait for good deals to come around. I could not find anything I wanted to do more, and this is exactly what we planned. From the food, the service, the understanding of the details. Again, what I think is, you always have to talk to somebody about what luxury is and why somebody might want to do luxury. And people will often, especially when you are trying to consider luxury for the first time, you'll think, wow, I look at what I get for the price and the price is much higher, etc. And you're like, wow, there's just not a value proposition there. And luxury isn't always about just the dollars involved. It is about the little details, about the things that make you say to yourself, this is what life should be like at all points in time. One of the greatest examples is on this expedition ship. I've done many galley tours in many other places, and on the big ships, it's always interesting to see the production and everything. Here, every single restaurant on the ship, of which there are five, has their own galley. So there is no shared galleys in that. Literally, it is a micro restaurant being run with chefs who are dedicated to that, and everything is made a la minute, which means to order. They're in the minute. That's what a la minute stands for, and so you're literally seeing food at its best. But it's more than that. It's the provisioning. How do you get the freshest food, period, while you're in the middle of nowhere? Well, I can tell you it was interesting. We're actually out on the Zodiacs one day looking at the birds, and we noticed a flotilla of ships kind of racing out of the docks, little fishing boats racing out of the docks. And we're like, what's going on? And we got back on the ship, and the captain actually let us know that it was a Friday. It was normally not a working day for the fishermen, but the year prior, when they had been in port, it was not a Friday; it was a working day, and they'd managed to acquire fresh fish from the fishermen directly onto the ship. No middlemen, caught that day, and they actually, while they were docked, they actually asked the people in port, like, "Well, we don't normally, it's Friday. We don't normally go out fishing. We don't have anything to sell." And the captain's like, "Wow, we'd really like to buy fish from you," and they're like, "Give us 2 hours." And literally the fishing boats went out and caught fresh cod. I mean, the most beautiful fish you could possibly have, brought it on. They bought 1,000 kilos, right? That's about 200 pounds, right? Okay. Right. Okay. Of fresh cod. And that's what every meal from then on in for the rest of the cruise had some cod dish on it. But you can't get it any fresher. It was literally caught for us that day. In addition, so provisioning, getting the freshest ingredients, finding the ways to get that. But when you're on a long trip, like what they talked about when they're down in Antarctica for 20 plus days, there's no place to get fruits, vegetables, other stuff. So they actually, as part of the galley tour, brought us into a separate room where they had literally installed about 20 feet worth of these special grow containers, grow cabinets from floor to ceiling with hydroponics. And they were literally growing their own herbs and growing their own microgreens and learning to actually grow even bigger things like cilantro. So they always would have fresh herbs in the middle of, no matter where they were, literally in the Antarctic, where there's nothing but penguins and ice, they would have fresh herbs to go along with everything. Those are the little differences. The fact that everyone knew your name, the fact that anything you ask for, the only answer is yes, let me see how I can get that done for you. Those are really amazing things. And that's what really luxury is. And if you want that experience of having the best of everything, having the experiences, then, it's something you really need to invest in. And it is an investment. It makes your world a better place for you. I think you can take one look at me and know it was the food. And despite being the guy who is trying very hard to not be any bigger than he is and be smaller, actually, I managed to eat amazingly well and still be healthy. The two chef's tables, they have one actual chef's table, which is you have to ask when you first get on board. You can't make reservations in advance. You need to get on board. The first thing you got to do is ask your butler to get you a reservation there if at all possible. It's kind of the lottery system because they do not have enough times that it happens that it's only 10 people at a shot to get everybody on the ship in that regard. We were fortunate enough to get drawn for that. And so 10 courses, of the most innovative, creative, and you can see the photos. I'm sure they'll be posted along with this in review. to see the creativity that goes into it, to have the chef, sit there and describe what they've done. And I mean, literally, the meal came with a toolbox, right? So you literally different things for different things. One meal that looked like a giant cigar that was literally smoking, etc. That was just. It's hard to describe the theatrics and the aspect of it. But then they had another kind of chef's table. This was, they call it night market, which was actually they cooked in front of you. There's again only 8 people actually at this event. They do it twice a night, at 6:30 and at 8:30, which was great. But really giving the crews, which especially in the kitchen is mostly Filipino and Southeast Asian overall, a chance to really enjoy their culture and share their culture with others. And so they basically took 8 dishes from street food, basically within the Philippines, and elevated it to 5-star luxury food in an 8-course tasting menu that went from entree to dessert, which was unbelievably interesting and very cool. So that, but even just the normal stuff, the quality of it. I just got off a more mass market line just a week earlier, and one of my favorite things, I'm a good New Yorker. I love bagels and lox, and so good smoked salmon. And you think that lox is lox is lox. It's not. There's really good stuff, and then there's just smoked salmon. Um, and most of the other cruise lines, when you get lox or smoked salmon, it is a fairly low quality product. It's an expensive product. On the ship, it was just I couldn't. It was how I started every single day indulging with just some of the finest ingredients that I could possibly hope to have. Yeah, and again, I went to the bar. I'm not a drinker. My wife is the designated drinker. I'm the designated driver in our family, and so I'm, not that I have anything against alcohol. I do wine tastings and other things, but I'm just not a big drinker. And I love mocktails. One of the nice things about having any beverage package where alcohol is included or the drinks are included is I could order weird mocktails that I would never pay 12 or $15 for at a bar, but hey, when they're included, I'll be happy to indulge. So I went to the bartenders and like, look, I want something low cal. I want something that a little bit flavorful and fruity, and I don't know, have a good time. And so they came up with something that I'd never had before. And to be honest with you, I've already ordered the ingredients from Amazon to have it delivered so I can start making them for myself. But they made me this lychee drink. I never actually had a lychee, right? And that, I mean, and I challenge you to go to a bar, okay? Especially a bar that only serves 100 and 200 people, right? Because this is on a small ship, only a finite audience, that actually had at the bar an entire jar of lychees, okay, fresh, right? Which I didn't even know what the hell they were in many ways. But using a little bit of lychee juice and Sprite Zero, so caffeine free, 0 calorie, along with just a few other juices, basically concocted this wonderful mocktail that I am now utterly addicted to. And that is something that enriched my life. And again, I know it sounds silly in many ways, but those are the little details about traveling with the ability to have every ingredient, every luxury, with the goal of every crew member is only to say yes to you. That's really what they want to do. That will change how you see the world and how you enjoy and experience things. As I said, I could not wait. So we actually did book a 22-night Antarctica for my 60th birthday coming up next year, and yeah, so very much so. And that'll be true expedition. Iceland was kind of expedition light. Now we did use the Zodiacs. But there really wasn't walking out or doing polar exploration or anything like that. It's kind of a mixture of a regular cruise with a little bit of a expedition, so I might call it expedition light. But this will be a true expedition sailing where you're literally going out and any time of day to see whatever we're actually going to do, both the full circle of down there, which is basically a week in Antarctica, sail over to the South Georgia Islands, which was really interesting. I had not really thought about it. I knew the Falklands, and I didn't have a whole lot of interest necessarily because I didn't know that I understand the wildlife, and mostly I know the Falklands from obviously them fighting over with England over it in the Falkland War back when I was younger. Look at your history books if it's too new for you. But South Georgia Island is, I had no knowledge of what it was, but it's actually the place on Earth with the largest per capita wildlife per square foot. And that is because the emperor penguin colonies that are there have millions and millions of them, and a chance to go there during nesting season and to see all that. And I was at dinner talking to the captain on one evening, and I, again, trying to make conversation. I asked him, so, what is your one of your favorite places on the planet that you get to go with the ship? And he said, Antarctica is like, okay. He goes, but South Georgia Island for me is an absolute place I cannot. He goes, it's the most undisturbed, most pristine, most out of the way, remote place you'll probably ever get to in your life, and it's worth spending a couple of days there. So yeah, so I'm going to.